The crash happened 3 miles from the human base. Jake heard the explosion from his watch post and saw the smoke rising above the alien trees. He grabbed his rifle and ran toward the sound, his boots hitting the rocky ground hard. The ship was small, built for speed. It lay broken against the purple rocks, its metal twisted and burning. Jake had never seen a design like this before. The hull was silver with strange blue lines that still glowed, even though the ship was dead. He moved closer, keeping his weapon ready. The cockpit was cracked open. Inside, he saw movement. "Hello?" Jake called out. "Anyone alive in there?" A weak voice answered him. It sounded like a woman, but the words were in a language he didn't know. Jake climbed up to the broken cockpit and looked inside. His breath stopped. The pilot was unlike anything he had ever seen. She looked almost human, but her skin was pale blue and her hair was silver like starlight. Her eyes were closed, but he could see they were larger than human eyes. She wore armor that seemed to be made of the same glowing metal as her ship. Blood ran down her forehead. Her left arm was twisted at a wrong angle. She was hurt bad. "Hey, can you understand me?" Jake asked, setting his rifle aside. Her strange eyes opened. They were deep purple like the sky at sunset. When she saw him, fear flashed across her face. She tried to move away but cried out in pain. "Easy, easy," Jake said, holding up his hands. "I'm not going to hurt you. You're injured." She spoke again in her alien language, her voice weak but angry. Jake couldn't understand the words, but he knew she was telling him to stay back. "Look, I know you can't trust me," Jake said slowly, "but you're bleeding pretty bad. Let me help." He reached into his pack and pulled out his medical kit. The alien woman watched him with suspicious eyes as he opened it. When she saw the bandages and medicine, her expression changed a little. Jake pointed to her wounded head, then to the bandages. "For the cut," he said. She stared at him for a long moment. Then, very slowly, she nodded. Jake carefully cleaned the blood from her forehead. The cut wasn't as deep as it looked, but she had lost a lot of blood. As he worked, he noticed something strange. Her skin was warm, not cold like he expected. And when the medicine touched her wound, it seemed to heal faster than it should. "What are you?" he whispered. She seemed to understand the question, even if she couldn't understand his words. She pointed to herself and said something that sounded like Zephirian. "Zephirian," Jake repeated. The word felt strange in his mouth. She nodded, then pointed to him with a questioning look. "Human," Jake said, pointing to himself. "Jake. Who, man?" she said carefully. "Jake?" Her accent made his name sound musical. Jake finished bandaging her head and looked at her broken arm. This was going to be harder to fix. He pointed to it and made a splinting motion with his hands. She understood and gritted her teeth as he set the bone and wrapped it tight. While he worked, Jake noticed something else in the cockpit. Next to where the alien woman had been sitting was a sword. But this wasn't like any sword he had ever seen. The blade was made of the same glowing metal as her armor and ship. Even now, with the ship's power dead, the sword pulsed with its own inner light. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The woman saw him looking at it. She said something sharp and tried to reach for the weapon with her good arm. But she was too weak and fell back against her seat, breathing hard. "It's okay," Jake said. "I won't touch it." But even as he said the words, Jake felt something strange. The sword seemed to be calling to him, not with sound, but with something deeper. Something that made his heart beat faster and his hands want to reach out and grab the glowing handle. The alien woman was getting weaker. Her purple eyes were having trouble staying open. She needed real medical help, not just field bandages. Jake looked back toward his base, then at the woman. He couldn't carry her and leave the sword behind. What if someone else found it? What if it was dangerous? "I'm going to get help," Jake told her. "But first," he reached toward the glowing blade. The woman's eyes went wide with terror. She screamed something in her language and tried to grab his hand, but she was too weak to stop him. Jake's fingers closed around the sword's handle. He waited for pain. He waited for burning. He waited to die. Instead, the sword felt warm in his hand. Comfortable, like it belonged there. The alien woman stared at his unburned fingers wrapped around her weapon. Her purple eyes filled with something that looked like impossible fear. "What?" she whispered in perfect English. "What are you?" Jake held the glowing sword and felt power run through his arms. The blade hummed with energy, like it was alive and happy to be in his hands. The light from the metal grew brighter, casting strange shadows inside the broken ship. The alien woman stared at him with wide purple eyes. She was breathing fast, like she had just seen something that broke all the rules of her world. "This is impossible," she said in English, her voice shaking. "You should be dead. You should be burning." Jake looked down at his hands. The sword's handle was warm but comfortable. There were no burns, no pain, no marks at all. "Why? What's supposed to happen?" The woman tried to sit up straighter, wincing from her injuries. "I am Princess Liara of the 7th Fleet," she said, her voice getting stronger. "That blade has been in my family for 1,000 years. It is made from star metal, blessed by our ancient priests." "Star metal?" Jake asked, turning the sword slightly. The light danced along its edge. "Only those of royal Zephyrian blood can touch it," Liara explained. "Anyone else who tries?" She shuddered. "I saw a prisoner try to steal my father's blade once." The metal burned through his hand to the bone. He screamed for hours before he died. Jake felt a chill run down his back. "But I'm not burning." "No," Liara whispered. "You are not, and that should be impossible." She studied his face like she was seeing him for the first time. "What world are you from, Jake the human?" "Earth," Jake said. "It's pretty far from here. We're still new to space travel." Liara's eyes narrowed. "Earth. I have never heard of this world. Are you sure you are human?" "Pretty sure," Jake said with a small laugh. "I've been human my whole life." But even as he said it, Jake felt doubt creeping in. The sword in his hands felt so natural, so right, like he had been born to hold it. "How is that possible?" "Tell me about these swords," Jake said. "How do they work?" Liara was quiet for a moment, like she wasn't sure she should answer. Finally, she spoke. "The star metal comes from the core of dying stars. Our ancestors learned to forge it long ago, when the galaxy was young. Each blade chooses its master." "Chooses?" "The metal knows who is worthy," she explained. "It knows bloodlines, honor, strength of spirit. It can sense things about a person that even they do not know about themselves." Jake felt the sword pulse in his hands, like a heartbeat. "What is it sensing in me?" "I do not know," Liara admitted. "But if it accepts you, then you are not what you appear to be." A sound outside made them both freeze. Voices were calling out in the Zephyrian language. They were getting closer. "My warriors," Liara said, relief and worry mixing in her voice. "They have come to rescue me." "That's good," Jake said. "You need medical help." But Liara grabbed his arm with her good hand. "Jake, you must understand something. If my people see you holding that sword, they will either worship you or kill you. There is no middle ground." "Why?" "Because there are legends," she said urgently. "Old stories about warriors from another world. They say these warriors will return one day to reclaim what was theirs. The star metal swords are supposed to recognize them." The voices were getting closer. Jake could hear boots on rocks, weapons being readied. "What should I do?" he asked. "I do not know," Liara said. "If you are truly what the sword thinks you are, then everything my people believe about the universe is about to change." Jake looked at the blade in his hands. The light was getting brighter, like it could sense the approaching Zephyrians. "What if I just put it down and walk away?" "The blade will not let you," Liara said. "Once it chooses forever. You are bound to it now, just as it is bound to you." Heavy footsteps stopped right outside the crashed ship. A deep voice shouted something in Zephyrian. "Commander Vex," Liara called back weakly. "I am here. I am alive." Jake heard the relief in the voices outside. Then he heard them moving toward the ship, ready to climb up and rescue their princess. "Jake," Liara whispered urgently. "Whatever happens, do not let go of that sword. If you drop it now, it may never accept you again. But your people will have to accept what the blade has decided," she said firmly, "even if it scares them." A shadow fell across the broken cockpit. Jake looked up to see a huge Zephyrian warrior looking down at them. The warrior had the same blue skin as Liara, but his was darker, like deep ocean water. His armor was black metal covered in battle scars. Commander Vex's eyes took in the scene quickly. His princess injured but alive. A strange alien crouched next to her, clearly having given medical aid. Then Vex saw what the alien was holding. The commander's face went completely white. His mouth opened but no sound came out. Behind him, other warriors were climbing up to help, but they stopped moving when they saw their leader's expression. "Princess," Commander Vex said in a strangled voice, not taking his eyes off Jake, "why does the human hold your blade?" Liara took a deep breath. Because it chose him, old friend. The star metal has chosen him. The sword in Jake's hands pulsed with brilliant light, as if it were agreeing. Commander Vex took a step backward, his hand moving to his own weapon. Impossible, he breathed. The legends cannot be true. Jake felt the sword growing warmer in his grip. Around the ship he could hear more Zephyrian voices, confused and frightened. "Commander," Liara said softly, "we may need to rethink everything we know about the universe." Commander Vex stared at Jake with eyes full of terror and disbelief. Behind him, more Zephyrian warriors climbed onto the crashed ship. They were all elite soldiers, their black armor marked with silver symbols of rank. Each one carried weapons that hummed with energy. But when they saw what Jake was holding, every single warrior froze. "By the ancient stars," one of them whispered, "the human holds a star blade." "It is not possible," another said, his voice shaking. "The metal should have killed him instantly." Commander Vex held up his hand for silence. His dark blue face was pale with shock. "Human," he said carefully, "set down the princess's blade. Move away from it slowly." Jake looked down at the sword in his hands. The star metal was glowing brighter now, like it could feel the tension in the air. "I don't think it wants me to let go." "You will release it," Vex commanded, his voice harder now. "No alien may touch the sacred metal. It is forbidden by laws older than your species." Princess Liara tried to sit up straighter. "Commander, you do not understand. The blade chose him. I saw it happen." "That is impossible, Princess," Vex said, not taking his eyes off Jake. "The star metal knows only Zephyrian royal blood. This human must be using some kind of technology to trick the blade." "I'm not using anything," Jake said honestly. "I just picked it up to help her." The warriors around the ship began to mutter to each other in their own language. Jake couldn't understand the words, but he could hear fear in their voices. These were experienced soldiers, but something about this situation was scaring them badly. "Commander," Liara said urgently, "look at his hands. There are no burns, no marks. The blade accepts him completely." Vex stepped closer, his own weapon half drawn. "Show me your hands, human." Jake held up his free hand, keeping the sword steady with the other. His palm was clean, unmarked. No burns, no blisters, no pain. One of the younger warriors made a sound like a prayer. "The old stories," he breathed. "The legends our grandmothers told us. Silence." Vex snapped, but Jake could see doubt creeping into the commander's eyes. "What legends?" Jake asked. Liara answered before Vex could stop her. "Stories of the first ones, the ancient race that came before us, before all of us. They say the first ones created the star metal, created the blades. They left them behind when they disappeared." "Disappeared where?" "No one knows," she said. "Some say they died out. Others believe they went to sleep, waiting for the right time to return. The legends say when they come back, the star metal will recognize them." Commander Vex's face was getting darker. "Those are children's stories, Princess. Myths to frighten enemies." But even as he said it, his hand moved away from his weapon. Jake could see the fear growing in the big warrior's eyes. "Then explain this," Liara challenged. "Explain how a human can hold my blade without burning." Jake felt the sword pulse in his grip. The light was getting stronger, and he could swear he heard something like music coming from the metal. It was calling to him, pulling at something deep inside his chest. "I need to return this to you," Jake said to Liara. He started to extend the sword toward her. The moment he moved the blade, everything changed. The star metal erupted in brilliant white light. The glow was so bright that every warrior had to shield their eyes. Jake felt power surge through his arms and into his body. The sword was no longer just humming. It was singing, a sound like wind through crystal caves. When the light faded, Jake was still holding the sword. But now he could see strange symbols glowing along the blade's edge. They looked like writing, but in no language he had ever seen. Every Zephyrian warrior was backing away from him. Some had dropped their weapons completely. Others were on their knees. "The words of power," one of them whispered. "The blade shows the ancient script." Commander Vex was pale as moonlight. "This cannot be happening." "But it is happening," Liara said softly. "Look at him, Vex, really look." Jake felt different. The sword in his hands no longer felt like a foreign object. It felt like part of his body, like an arm or leg he had been missing his whole life. and the power flowing through him was growing stronger. "I can feel something," Jake said, his voice sounding strange to his own ears. "Like something waking up inside me." The sword's light pulsed again, and this time Jake heard voices. Not out loud, but in his mind. They were speaking in the same language as the glowing symbols on the blade. "What is it saying?" Liara asked, watching his face. "I don't know," Jake said. "But I think it's trying to show me something." The voices in his mind grew clearer, and suddenly Jake could see images. Ancient battles fought among the stars, worlds being born and dying, and warriors who looked exactly like humans, wielding swords of star metal against enemies made of shadow and flame. "Commander," one of the warriors called out urgently, "something is moving in the temple ruins." Everyone turned to look. About a mile away, ancient stone buildings rose from the purple landscape. Jake had noticed them before, but thought they were just old ruins. Now lights were flickering inside them, the same color as the sword in his hands. "The temple has been dead for 1,000 years, Vex said, his voice barely a whisper. "Not anymore," Liara said, staring at the lights. "Jake, what have you awakened?" The sword was pulling at him now, like it wanted him to go toward the temple. Jake took a step in that direction, and the blade's song grew louder. "I think," Jake said slowly, "it wants to take me home." The ancient temple ruins pulsed with light, calling to him across the alien landscape. And deep in his mind, Jake heard voices speaking in a language he had never learned but somehow understood. They were welcoming him back. The sword pulled Jake forward like an invisible rope was tied to his chest. He tried to resist, but his feet moved on their own toward the glowing temple ruins. Behind him, the Zephyrian warriors followed at a safe distance, their weapons forgotten on the ground. "Jake," Princess Liara called out. Commander Vex was carrying her now, her injuries too severe for walking. "The temple has been sealed for centuries. No one knows what is inside." "I think it knows I'm coming," Jake said. The star metal in his hands was singing louder now, harmonizing with the lights flickering in the ancient stones ahead. As they got closer, Jake could see how old the temple really was. The stones were covered in the same glowing symbols that had appeared on his sword. But these symbols were worn smooth by thousands of years of wind and rain. Whatever built this place had been gone for a very long time. The temple entrance was a massive archway, tall enough for giants to walk through. As Jake approached, the symbols on the stones began to glow brighter. The sword in his hands responded, its light matching the rhythm of the temple's pulse. "Commander," one of the younger warriors whispered, "should we stop him?" Vex shook his head slowly. "I do not think we could stop him if we tried. The ancient powers are awake now." Jake reached the entrance and stopped. The archway was blocked by a wall of energy that shimmered like water. Through it, he could see a vast chamber filled with floating lights. "How do I get in?" he asked the sword. The blade's answer came not in words but in knowing. Jake raised the star metal and touched it to the energy barrier. The wall dissolved instantly like mist in sunlight. Cool air flowed out of the temple, carrying scents of metal and starlight. Jake stepped inside, and the Zephyrians followed carefully behind him. The chamber was enormous. The ceiling stretched up into darkness, supported by pillars covered in more glowing symbols. But what took Jake's breath away were the holograms. Dozens of them filled the air, showing scenes from long ago. Jake saw starships unlike anything humans or Zephyrians had ever built. He saw worlds being shaped by machines the size of mountains. And he saw warriors. "By the void," Commander Vex breathed. "Those warriors, they look like humans," Liara finished. The holographic warriors were identical to humans in every way. Same height, same build, same facial features. But they wore armor made of star metal and carried swords that blazed with inner fire. They moved with confidence and power that made even the elite Zephyrian soldiers look clumsy. "The first ones," one of the warriors whispered. "They were real." Jake walked deeper into the chamber, drawn by the largest hologram at the center. This one showed a massive space battle, with the human-like warriors fighting creatures made of darkness and shadow. Their star metal weapons cut through the enemy like light through smoke. As he got closer, the hologram changed. Now it showed a single warrior, tall and proud, standing before a great assembly of different alien races. Jake recognized some of them as early Zephyrians, but there were dozens of other species he had never seen. The warrior was speaking, and suddenly Jake could understand the words. "We go now to the far reaches of the galaxy," the ancient voice said. "Our children will sleep until the darkness returns. When that time comes, the star metal will call them home." The scene shifted again. Now Jake saw fleets of ships leaving, carrying thousands of the warriors toward the edge of known space. The hologram followed one ship in particular as it traveled to a small blue world. "Earth," Jake whispered. The ship landed on prehistoric Earth, and the warriors began to change. Their star metal armor faded. Their weapons went silent. They looked more and more like regular humans with each passing generation. "You see now," a new voice said behind Jake. He turned to find an elderly Zephyrian approaching. This one was different from the others. His skin was almost white with age, and his eyes held wisdom that seemed older than the stars. "Who are you?" Jake asked. "I am Keeper Thane," the old one said. "I have guarded this temple my entire life, waiting for this day. My family has been guardians here for 50 generations. Waiting for what day? The day the lost ones would return," Thane said simply. "The day a human would touch the star metal and awaken the ancient knowledge." Liara stared at the holograms, showing early humans. "They are our creators?" "More than that," Thane explained. "The first ones shaped many races across the galaxy. They gave us star metal technology. They taught us honor and warfare. Then they left us to grow on our own while they went into hiding." "Why?" Jake asked. "Why did they leave?" Thane pointed to another hologram showing the shadow creatures. "The Devourers, beings from outside our galaxy that consume all life, all light, all hope. The first ones fought them for 10,000 years before finally driving them back into the void. But the war cost them everything." The Keeper continued. "They were too few, too tired to continue. So they scattered to the far worlds, let their bloodlines sleep and change, waiting for the time when they would be needed again." Jake felt a chill. "That time is now?" "The Devourers are returning," Thane said gravely. "Our deep space sensors have detected them at the galaxy's edge. They are still years away, but they are coming." Commander Vex stepped forward. "How do you know all this?" "Because the temple told me," Thane said. "When the human touched the star metal, all the old systems awakened. The temple has been sending signals across the galaxy, calling the lost ones home." Jake looked down at the sword in his hands. It was glowing steadily now, no longer pulsing, like it had found what it was looking for. "How many of us are there?" he asked. "We do not know," Thane admitted. "The first ones scattered to many worlds. Some bloodlines may have died out. Others may have forgotten who they were, but those who carry the old blood will feel the call now." As if responding to his words, the sword suddenly blazed with light. Jake felt something connect in his mind, other presences far away but growing stronger. Other humans, on other worlds, touching star metal for the first time and remembering what they had always been. "They are awakening," Thane said with satisfaction. "The lost ones are coming home." Princess Liara struggled to sit up straighter in Vex's arms. "What happens now?" "Now," Thane said, looking at Jake with eyes full of hope and fear. "We prepare for war. The galaxy's greatest warriors have returned just in time to face its greatest threat." The temple's lights pulsed once more, and Jake knew his quiet life as a simple human soldier was over forever. The real fight was about to begin. The sky above the temple turned black with enemy ships. Jake counted at least 50 of them, each one the size of a city block. They moved with deadly purpose, their hulls covered in spikes and weapons that glowed red like burning coals. "Krillian War Fleet," Commander Vex said grimly, setting Princess Liara down gently behind a stone pillar. "They must have followed our signal here." "How many soldiers?" Jake asked, still holding the star metal sword. The blade was humming with power, eager for battle. "Each ship carries 1,000 warriors," Keeper Thane said. "The Krillians are the Devourers' advanced scouts. They prepare worlds for consumption." Jake did the math quickly. 50,000 enemy soldiers against maybe 20 Zephyrian warriors and one confused human. The odds were not good. "We need to evacuate," Vex said. "Get the princess to safety and call for reinforcements." "There is no time," Thane said, pointing at the sky. "They are already landing." Dark shapes were falling from the ships like deadly rain. Each one was a drop pod carrying Krillian shock troops. Jake could see them hitting the ground all around the temple, their occupants pouring out with weapons ready. The Krillians looked like nightmares made real. They stood 9 feet tall with gray skin like stone and forearms each ending in razor claws. Their eyes glowed the same red as their weapons, and they moved with terrifying speed. "Princess," Vex said urgently, "we cannot protect you against these numbers." "Then do not try to protect me," Liara said firmly. "Give me a weapon and let me die as a warrior." But Jake was not listening to their conversation. The sword in his hands was showing him something else. In his mind, he could see the battle that was coming, not just here, but across the galaxy. The Krillians were attacking dozens of worlds at once, testing the defenses before the real invasion began. And he could feel them, other humans, other lost ones who had awakened to their true nature. They were fighting on distant worlds, their own star metal weapons blazing with ancient power. "I know what I have to do," Jake said quietly. He walked to the center of the temple chamber and raised the sword above his head. The blade erupted in brilliant light that pierced through the stone ceiling and shot into the sky like a beacon. "Jake!" Liara called out. "What are you doing?" "Calling for help," he said. The light from his sword reached the Krillian ships and did something impossible. It passed right through their shields and armor like they were made of paper. Several of the smaller ships began to smoke and fall. But more importantly, the light was sending a message. Jake could feel it reaching across space to every awakened human in the galaxy. It was telling them where he was and what he needed. The first one to answer his call materialized in the temple chamber with a flash of silver light. She was a woman about Jake's age, wearing armor made of star metal. Her sword was already in her hand and glowing with power. "I felt your call," she said in English. "I am Sarah from the colony world of New Geneva." More flashes of light filled the temple. Human warriors were teleporting in from across the galaxy, their star metal weapons allowing them to travel instantly wherever they were needed. Jake counted 10, then 20, then 50 of them. "How is this possible?" Commander Vex asked in amazement. "The star metal connects all things," Keeper Thane explained. "When the lost ones were ready, the ancient technology would reunite them." An explosion outside shook the temple walls. The Krillians had reached the entrance and were trying to break through. "Time to go," Jake said. He led the awakened humans out of the temple to face the enemy. The Krillians had surrounded the ancient building with thousands of troops. Their red weapons were charging up for a massive assault. When they saw Jake and his fellow humans emerge from the temple, the Krillians hesitated. These small, weak-looking creatures did not seem like much of a threat. That hesitation cost them dearly. Jake raised his sword and felt the power of his ancestors flow through him. The star metal showed him exactly how to move, how to fight, how to be the warrior he was born to be. He moved faster than he had ever moved before, his blade cutting through Krillian armor like it was made of paper. Behind him, the other humans did the same. Each one fought with the skill of 10 veterans, their awakened bloodlines remembering battles fought across the stars. The Krillians tried to surround them, but the humans moved like dancers, supporting each other with perfect coordination. Their swords blazed with light that seemed to burn the enemy soldiers from the inside out. In less than 10 minutes, it was over. 50,000 Krillian warriors lay defeated around the temple. The surviving enemy ships fled into space, their mission a complete failure. Jake stood among the bodies of his enemies, his sword still glowing with victory. Around him, his fellow humans were checking their weapons and comparing stories of their own awakening. Princess Liara approached him carefully. Her purple eyes were full of wonder and respect. "You are not just humans anymore," she said. "You are what you always were, the galaxy's greatest warriors." "We are the same people we always were," Jake said gently. "We just remember who we are now." Commander Vex knelt before Jake, and all the other Zephyrian warriors did the same. "We pledge our swords to the Lost Ones," he said formally. "Guide us against the darkness." Jake helped the big warrior stand. "We fight together, all of us, just like our ancestors did." Keeper Thane emerged from the temple with a small device in his hands. It was made of star metal and covered in glowing symbols. "The temple's final gift," he said, offering it to Jake. "A communicator that can reach every world in the galaxy. Use it to rally all the races against the coming storm." Jake took the device and felt its power. He could sense billions of beings across the galaxy, all of them looking to the stars with fear as the Devourers approached. "The real war is just beginning," he said to his assembled warriors. "But we are ready." Sarah stepped up beside him. "What are your orders, Commander?" Jake looked at the faces around him. Humans who had been farmers and teachers and engineers just days ago, now awakened to their true purpose. Zephyrian warriors ready to follow them into battle. All of them united against an enemy that wanted to devour everything they loved. "We go home," Jake said. "All of us. We warn our people, we gather our allies, and we prepare for the fight of our lives." He raised his sword to the sky, and every human weapon blazed in response. Across the galaxy, Jake knew other lost ones were doing the same thing. The ancient bloodlines were awake. The greatest warriors in galactic history had returned. The Devourers would find Earth and her allies ready for them. The real story was just beginning.